Hey, what's up, everybody? It's BDO44 coming at you with another video. And so I had a topic fall into my lap. Saw something on Facebook, kind of made me think. Two players being compared to one another usually is nothing to it, but this one actually made me say, this might be a decent video, so let's see what comes of it. So, today I'm going to do a loose comparison. And I say loose because I didn't grow up watching either one of the teams that these guys played for, so I only watched sample size and whole lot of 2K and a whole lot of fantasy basketball. So I know what these guys can do, but if I'm a little off, there's the disclaimer for that. Today, the two players are Tony Parker, the San Antonio Spurs, since retired, and Kyrie Irving. And I think this is a decent comparison. I mean, I really do. I mean, obviously, no one's going to assume that Tony Parker can ever dribble the ball even close to Kyrie Irving. So that slider is all the way up for Kyrie Irving. And, Tony had solid handles. I mean, don't get it twisted. He was good, but Kyrie's the best, and that's the end of that. I also want to give the three-point shot to Kyrie Irving as well by a slight hair, even though Tony Parker could stretch the floor pretty damn well, actually. But I'm just going to give that a hair to Kyrie Irving. If the numbers don't back that up, I'm okay with that. That's just my opinion. Where I think it really, really falls in line, of course, they're both NBA champions. You're not going to compare Tony Parker's 5, I think it's 4, because that first one came with Avery Johnson as the point guard. So 4 championships versus Kyrie Irving's 1 NBA championship. Both champions, but, no one's going to confuse those two in that regard. Where they do meet up is in the interior scoring category. That's where they really meet one another and are comparable quite a bit, which is why I thought this was a decent comparison. Tony Parker's interior scoring percentages were Shaq-like, and that was nearly impossible. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it either. But it's the truth. When Tony Parker was in his heyday, when he was in his absolute and utter prime, he was by far and away the best finishing point guard in the game and one of the greatest, if not the greatest, finishing point guard in the history of the sport. And he was doing all of it without ever grabbing the rim. It was all layups, bro. But he just found his niche with these little underhand layups, these little hook layups, and just being absolutely and utterly crafty to the basket. One of the best footwork point guards, interior footwork point guards of all time. I mean, he just found ways of getting to the basket and laying the ball in. And like Kyrie Irving, they're also both fantastic from the free throw line. I do not know the percentages of the two players. I know Kyrie Irving's shooting like 90-something% this year, but I'm not sure his career. But I know he's excellent. And Tony Parker, if I'm not mistaken, had his issues from the line. That was not a strength of his, so I'm definitely going to give that to Kyrie Irving. But he did hit his free throws, but he was historically below average as a free throw shooter. So that's where they meet. And I think Tony Parker, I would give the edge to being a better defender. Kyrie Irving never played for Greg Popovich, was never in a defensive system of that caliber. Had he been raised in a system like San Antonio, I think his defense would be more comparable to Tony Parker's in terms of that, but I'd give Tony the edge. Tony's a better defender. Neither one of them are world beater defenders, by the way, but Tony just happened to be able to display more of a defensive understanding based on that system that he was always in. But yeah, that's where Kyrie Irving, I think, really, Kyrie and Tony Parker are really, really comparable. It's just that interior scoring. Kyrie Irving is an amazing finisher on the bank, just amazing. But believe it or not, his percentages are not as high as Tony Parker. Tony has that. So I don't know that I've come to a conclusion of who's better. I think if you had to pick between the two careers, I'm definitely going to go Tony Parker off them championships. Interior scoring, I'm going to go Tony Parker because of the percentages. He was just amazing in that regard. And Kyrie, of course, has the dribbling. That's not even close. And three-point shot, I think I'll give to Kyrie as well. There are other aspects of the game. Both of them are not pass-first point guards, but they're both good passers. Kyrie is a scoring guard. You don't really want him running your offense. Tony Parker, kind of the same thing, to be completely honest with you. But I think I'd give the edge to Tony Parker in terms of facilitating, because once again, raised in a system where the ball just simply popped. You wouldn't confuse Tony Parker with being like, Magic Johnson or Stockton or something like that. But because of the system he was in, they just made sure the ball was popping around at all times. San Antonio's first Spurs were probably one of the best, if not the best passing team that I ever saw. Like, they just simply passed better than everybody else and defended better than everybody else. The way I looked at the San Antonio Spurs of the old days back in the early 2000s, I used to liken them to like a snake. The way their game style would be, in my opinion, would be like you would have a close game with them for about 2 quarters, 2.5 quarters, where you would just think that you're going back and forth with them. You think that you're close. You think that the game is going in your direction or maybe their direction, but it's close, you got a chance. And you think that you're headed to a fourth quarter where it can be anybody's game. That's not what San Antonio did to you. What they did was kind of hypnotize you like a snake would do. You know what I mean? Slowly wrap themselves around you in the first 3 quarters and then squeeze the life out of you defensively in the fourth, blow you completely out of the game. San Antonio had a system spearheaded by Tim Duncan and led by also Tony Parker and Ginobili, and they just ran that stuff to absolute perfection. They mastered their system. They mastered their style of play, and that's why they were in the finals every other year, winning championships every other year during the Shaq and Kobe era. They were right there. And, I love it. I love what I saw from that team. And I think a lot of what Tony Parker was great at kind of was magnified by the perfection of those guys running that system and the excellent coaching that Greg Popovich consistently provided for over 2 decades. So when you're talking about the San Antonio Spurs and Tony Parker, you can't leave out the fact that he had that system in his arsenal, along with Tony Parker, along with everybody else who went on and had acclaimed careers from that Spur umbrella. They simply had each other. Kyrie never had that. Kyrie didn't have that type of structure. And that counts to me. Because if Kyrie, like I said, if Kyrie Irving was raised in the San Antonio Spurs culture with Tony Parker as his number one guy and a guy on his bench that was a Hall of Famer as well, I do believe that Kyrie Irving's numbers and career and his championship numbers and all that stuff would just be increased. So I definitely give the edge to Kyrie Irving in terms of a more difficult path. Going through Cleveland, going to Boston, having the injury issues and things of that nature, which is another aspect of this conversation. Tony Parker was a very durable point guard. Could take and absorb contact almost like Iverson. Kyrie is not that. As much as I love Kyrie, and he's not afraid, obviously, with his shooting percentages and his interior percentages as well, clearly he doesn't mind taking punishment, but he can't handle it physically. He does break. Kyrie has weak bones. That's what I noticed from the time he was first drafted on. He always breaks something. Now, in the last couple of years, he has definitely not been breaking things, but he still has a lot of injury issues. He's still missing games and things of that nature because of injury. So, durability, Tony Parker's going to take that. I know Tony had a very freak a freak injury happening in the latter part of his career. Skip Bayless is who comes to mind because he was the one who made it clear to me just how serious that injury was. I think they said something along the lines of it was like a complete growing tear where his groin just completely detached from the bone or something. It was very, very gruesome, very, very difficult to come back from, but he did. He came back from it and he played pretty well and ended up playing for the Charlotte Hornets in his last year. Tony had a very long career. Kyrie Irving is still going. He's still writing his story. Brooklyn could very well win a championship or 2, maybe even 3. I wouldn't rule it out with that type of talent that they have. So Kyrie is still writing his legacy. I just want to see Kyrie kind of get out of his own way in terms of just let everything else out the way and just play basketball so we can kind of have these type of conversations without the asterisks of Kyrie taking time off, Kyrie kind of not being the greatest teammate or what have you. Whatever the narrative is, Tony Parker doesn't have that attached to his name. Partially because of structure, partially because they're just 2 different people. So yeah, if I'm going to just have to take one, you know what I mean? If I'm going to take one, I'm going to take Tony Parker. I am. I'm going to take Tony Parker because I believe that Tony Parker ultimately is just more of a stable player to have in my lineup. I know Tony's going to be there. First of all, I know Tony's going to score in the paint. I know Tony's going to make good decisions, especially when it comes down to winning time. Tony's one of the great Hall of Famers, point guard history. He's a great, great player. And not to take anything from Kyrie Irving, because I believe him to be great as well, but Kyrie has not shown me the reliability, which is what this ultimately comes down to me about. This is about reliability, consistency, and of course winning, and then intangibles. And as many intangibles as Kyrie Irving has that I absolutely and utterly appreciate, the one thing that I can't count on is him being there, just simply playing. And that's a big deal. So, yeah, for me, give me Tony P in his prime over Kyrie Irving. And I don't blame you guys for disagreeing, especially if you're from Cleveland or Boston or Brooklyn, when you watch a lot more Kyrie than I have. Or people in San Antonio who may say, hey, yo, you got that wrong about Tony P. That's not quite how it went. I understand, because I did not watch those guys like that. But I do have a loose understanding, so that's what I give you. Thank you guys for watching me. My name is BDF44. I'm out.